Let me start with something that might make you uncomfortable. Everything you've been taught about being rewarded for being good is a lie. A beautiful, comforting lie that keeps you trapped in a cycle of disappointment and invisibility. From childhood, we're fed this narrative that kindness, honesty, and humility are the golden tickets to recognition and success. Be nice to everyone. Put others first. Stay humble. Work hard with your head down. And eventually, the world will notice your goodness and reward you accordingly. But look around you. Really look. How many genuinely kind, self-sacrificing people do you know who are struggling in silence while more assertive, strategic individuals climb past them? How many times have you watched someone with half your integrity get the promotion, the relationship, or the respect you thought you deserved? This isn't an accident. It's not a temporary injustice that will eventually correct itself. It's the fundamental way the world actually operates. And the sooner you accept this reality, the sooner you can start living authentically instead of playing a rigged game. The myth tells us that good things come to those who wait, that being good is its own reward, that people will naturally gravitate toward and appreciate genuine kindness. But what actually happens? The kind person gets taken advantage of. The honest person gets passed over for someone willing to play politics. The humble person gets forgotten while the self-promoter takes credit for their work. We've been conditioned to believe that this is just temporary, that eventually karma will balance the scales. But karma isn't coming to save you. The world doesn't owe you anything for your goodness, and believing it does will only lead to bitterness and resentment when reality refuses to conform to your fairy tale expectations. The truth is that being good, in the traditional sense, often makes you invisible. It makes you predictable. It makes you safe to ignore because everyone knows you'll be there, smiling and accommodating no matter how you're treated. And invisibility, predictability, and being taken for granted are not paths to the life you actually want to live. Here's what actually gets rewarded in this world: strategic thinking, clear boundaries, and the ability to command respect through presence rather than permission seeking. The individuals who rise to positions of influence aren't necessarily the nicest people in the room. They're the ones who understand how power actually works. Power respects power. Influence gravitates toward those who already demonstrate they can't be easily manipulated or dismissed. When you walk into a room with genuine confidence, when you speak with the authority of someone who knows their worth, when you set clear boundaries and maintain them without apology, people pay attention. This isn't about being cruel or manipulative. It's about understanding that respect is earned through demonstrating that you respect yourself first. When you consistently prioritize others' comfort over your own dignity, you're teaching everyone around you that your dignity doesn't matter. Think about the people in your life who command genuine respect. Are they the ones who agree with everything you say and never challenge you? Or are they the ones who have clear standards, who won't accept disrespectful treatment, who can disagree with you while maintaining their composure and self-respect? The world rewards those who understand their value and communicate it clearly. It rewards those who can be generous from a position of strength rather than desperation. It rewards those who have learned the crucial difference between being kind and being weak. Strategic individuals understand that saying no to some things allows them to say yes to what matters. They understand that not everyone will like them, and they've made peace with that reality. They understand that trying to please everyone is a guaranteed path to pleasing no one, including themselves. This doesn't mean becoming cold or calculating. It means becoming conscious of your choices instead of operating from unconscious patterns of people-pleasing that stem from fear rather than genuine care. Niccolo Machiavelli understood something about human nature that makes most people deeply uncomfortable. In The Prince, he argued that effectiveness in leadership requires a willingness to set aside idealistic notions about how the world should work and deal with how it actually works. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for cruelty or dishonesty as ends in themselves. He was pointing out that leaders who rely solely on being loved and respected for their goodness will inevitably be destroyed by those who are willing to be more strategic and pragmatic. He used the metaphor of the fox and the lion. A prince, he argued, must know how to use both natures, the fox to recognize traps and the lion to frighten away wolves. Pure goodness without strategic thinking makes you vulnerable to those who would exploit your predictable nature. Pure force without cunning makes you vulnerable to being outmaneuvered by those who are smarter. The key insight here isn't that you should become manipulative or cruel. It's that you should become conscious and strategic about your choices rather than operating from unconscious patterns that consistently work against your best interests. Machiavelli observed that people judge by results, not intentions. You might have the purest motives in the world, but if your approach consistently leads to you being walked over, ignored, or taken advantage of, then your approach needs to change. Good intentions without effective action is just wishful thinking dressed up as virtue. This perspective challenges the comfortable notion that being moral automatically makes you effective, or that effectiveness requires abandoning morality. Instead, it suggests that true morality might require being strategic enough to protect your ability to do good in the world. When you allow yourself to be consistently diminished or ignored, you're not just harming yourself. You're depriving the world of whatever unique contribution you could make if you had the courage to claim your space and use your voice effectively. Machiavelli's realism isn't cynicism. It's the recognition that navigating human nature and social dynamics requires both wisdom and strength, both compassion and strategic thinking. Let's dig deeper into where this compulsive need to please everyone actually comes from, because understanding the root of the pattern is essential to breaking free from it. Most people-pleasing behavior stems from deep-seated fears that were often established in childhood. Fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of not being good enough, fear of conflict, fear of being alone. These fears create a conditioned response where you learn to monitor everyone else's emotions and adjust your behavior to maintain their approval. But here's what's crucial to understand. This pattern was adaptive at some point. Maybe you learned that being agreeable kept you safe in a chaotic household. Maybe you discovered that anticipating others' needs earned you the love and attention you craved. Maybe conflict in your environment felt so threatening that you developed an allergic reaction to anything that might create tension. The problem is that survival strategies from childhood often become self-sabotage patterns in adulthood. What kept you safe as a child might be keeping you small as an adult. The very behaviors that once earned you love and acceptance might now be preventing you from experiencing genuine intimacy and respect. People-pleasing is often a form of control disguised as selflessness. When you're constantly trying to manage others' reactions to you, you're attempting to control outcomes through your behavior. You're operating from the unconscious belief that if you just perform well enough, you can guarantee the love and acceptance you need. But this approach backfires because it prevents authentic connection. When people don't know who you really are, because you're constantly adapting to who you think they want you to be, they can't genuinely love or respect the real you. They can only love the performance, which leaves the real you feeling unseen and unappreciated. The need to please also often masks a deep sense of unworthiness. If you truly believed you were valuable just as you are, You wouldn't need to earn your place in every interaction. You wouldn't need to prove your worth through endless accommodation and self-sacrifice. Breaking this pattern requires developing a new relationship with uncertainty and potential disapproval. It requires learning to tolerate the discomfort of not knowing whether someone will accept the real you and choosing authenticity anyway. There's a crucial distinction that most people miss: the difference between genuine kindness and submissive people-pleasing. They might look similar on the surface, but they come from completely different places and lead to completely different outcomes. Genuine kindness comes from a place of wholeness and choice. When you're kind from a position of self-respect and clear boundaries, your kindness has power behind it. People can feel that you're choosing to be generous rather than compulsively giving to earn approval. Submissive people-pleasing, on the other hand, comes from fear and creates a dynamic where others learn they can take from you without reciprocating. When your kindness comes from desperation rather than strength, it often breeds contempt rather than appreciation. Self-sacrificial kindness that consistently puts others' comfort before your own dignity isn't actually kind to anyone. It's enabling others to treat you poorly, which doesn't serve them in developing respect and consideration for others. It's also slowly destroying your own sense of self-worth, which means you have less to offer the world over time. True kindness sometimes looks like saying no. It sometimes looks like setting a boundary that makes someone temporarily uncomfortable. It sometimes looks like refusing to enable someone's disrespectful behavior, even if they react badly to that refusal. When you say yes to everything out of fear, your yes loses its meaning. When you never say no, people can't tell the difference between your genuine enthusiasm and your compulsive accommodation. Your presence becomes background noise rather than a conscious choice. The most genuinely kind people you know probably aren't the ones who never upset anyone. They're the ones who care enough about themselves and others to have honest conversations, set clear expectations, and maintain their dignity while treating others with respect. Kindness without boundaries is often just delayed resentment. When you consistently give more than you can afford to give, emotionally or otherwise, you'll eventually become bitter about the very people you're trying to please. And that bitterness will poison your interactions far more than honest boundaries ever could. Learning to be kind and assertive simultaneously is one of the most important skills you can develop. It allows you to show up authentically in relationships while maintaining your self-respect and modeling healthy behavior for others. The journey from people-pleasing to authentic self-respect doesn't require becoming cold, cruel, or manipulative. In fact, if you swing to the opposite extreme, you're still letting fear drive your behavior, just in a different direction. The goal isn't to stop caring about others. It's to start including yourself in the circle of people you care about. It's to learn that taking care of your own needs and maintaining your dignity actually makes you more available for genuine connection and more capable of sustainable generosity. Learning to say no is perhaps the most important skill in this transformation. But the way you say no matters enormously. You can say no calmly, clearly, and without elaborate justifications or apologies. You don't need to provide a detailed explanation for every boundary you set. "I'm not available for that," or "that doesn't work for me," are complete sentences. When you first start setting boundaries, you'll likely face some pushback from people who are comfortable with your previous pattern of accommodation. This is actually a good sign. It means you're changing, and change often creates temporary discomfort in relationships. Some people will respect your new boundaries immediately. Others will test them to see if you really mean it. A few might become angry, or try to guilt you back into your old patterns. Your job isn't to manage their reactions. Your job is to maintain your boundaries consistently and kindly. Remember that not everyone will accept your transformation from doormat to self-respecting person. Some people were only comfortable with you when you were diminishing yourself for their convenience. If someone can't handle you having boundaries and self-respect, that tells you everything you need to know about their character and their capacity for genuine relationship. The key is to prioritize authenticity and self-respect over universal acceptance. You cannot be authentic and universally accepted. These are mutually exclusive goals. Choose authenticity and accept that some people won't appreciate the real you. That's information, not a problem to solve. One of the biggest mistakes people make when awakening to these truths is swinging too far in the opposite direction. They go from being overly accommodating to being unnecessarily harsh or cold. This is just another form of unconscious behavior, another way of letting fear drive your choices. True power and self-respect don't require being cruel or dismissive. In fact, the person who has to be mean to maintain boundaries probably doesn't actually feel secure in those boundaries. Genuine confidence allows you to be firm without being harsh, clear without being cruel. When you're truly comfortable with yourself and your worth, you don't need to prove it by putting others down or being unnecessarily difficult. You can be generous when you choose to be generous, and you can say no when you need to say no, all without drama or cruelty. The rebound trap happens because people mistake hardness for strength. But hardness is often just softness that's been hurt too many times. True strength is flexible. It can be gentle when appropriate and firm when necessary. It doesn't need to prove itself through constant displays of dominance or indifference. Being whole means integrating both your capacity for connection and your capacity for self-protection. It means being able to be vulnerable when it's safe and appropriate, and being able to be strong when boundaries are needed. It means responding to situations based on what's actually called for, rather than reacting from old wounds or fears. Some people will try to label your new boundaries as you being mean or selfish, especially if they benefited from your previous lack of boundaries. Don't let these labels pull you back into people-pleasing or push you into unnecessary harshness. Stay centered in your own sense of what's appropriate and kind. Remember that kindness and firmness aren't opposites. The kindest thing you can do is often to be clear about your limits and expectations. This allows others to make informed choices about how they want to interact with you, and it prevents resentment from building up over time. Here's the moment of truth. You have a choice to make, and it's a choice you'll need to make over and over again as you practice new ways of being in the world. You can continue prioritizing being nice and universally accepted, which means continuing to live a constrained life where your needs come last and your voice gets smaller and smaller. You can keep playing the game where you sacrifice your authenticity for the illusion of security, where you trade your dignity for the temporary comfort of avoiding conflict. Or you can choose freedom. You can choose to stop seeking permission to exist as you are. You can choose to set your own terms for how you'll be treated and what you'll accept in your relationships. You can choose to trust that the right people will appreciate your authenticity, even if it means some people won't. This choice requires courage because it means accepting uncertainty. When you stop trying to control others' reactions through people-pleasing, you have to tolerate not knowing whether they'll accept the real you. That uncertainty can feel terrifying at first. but it's also the doorway to genuine freedom and authentic connection. Continuing to prioritize being nice at the cost of your self-respect leads to a slow death of the spirit. It leads to resentment, frustration, and a growing sense that life is passing you by while you wait for permission to fully participate in it. But choosing authenticity and self-respect, even when it's uncomfortable, leads to a life where you can look in the mirror and recognize the person looking back at you. It leads to relationships based on genuine appreciation rather than convenient accommodation. It leads to the kind of respect that can only be earned, never demanded or manipulated. The people who will love and respect the authentic you are worth infinitely more than the multitudes who might tolerate a diminished version of you. Quality trumps quantity every time when it comes to relationships and life satisfaction. This isn't about becoming perfect or never making mistakes. It's about becoming conscious of your choices and choosing to live from strength rather than fear, from authenticity rather than performance, from self-respect rather than self-abandonment. This conversation is just the beginning. Breaking free from people-pleasing patterns and reclaiming your authentic power is a process, not a one-time decision. It requires patience with yourself as you unlearn old habits and practice new ways of being. Take a moment to reflect on your own patterns. Where in your life are you sacrificing your dignity for approval? Where are you saying yes when you mean no? Where are you making yourself smaller to make others more comfortable? Where are you giving away your power in the hope that others will value what you're offering? These moments of recognition are precious. They're the beginning of transformation. Each time you catch yourself in an old pattern, you have an opportunity to make a different choice. Each time you choose authenticity over approval, you're strengthening your capacity for genuine self-respect. This is fundamentally about awakening from a trance that many people never recognize they're in. The trance of believing that your worth depends on others' approval, that love must be earned through self-sacrifice, that being good means being invisible. The journey toward authentic power and self-respect isn't always comfortable, but it's infinitely more satisfying than the alternative. It's the difference between living your life and performing your life. It's the difference between being chosen for who you are and being tolerated for who you pretend to be. Remember that this transformation serves not just you, but everyone who has the privilege of knowing the real you. When you show up authentically and with self-respect, you give others permission to do the same. You model what it looks like to be kind without being weak, generous without being depleted, loving without losing yourself. The world needs more people who understand the difference between genuine kindness and fearful people-pleasing. It needs more people who can set boundaries with grace, who can be generous from strength rather than desperation, who can love others without abandoning themselves. You have everything you need to begin this transformation right now. You don't need anyone's permission to start respecting yourself. You don't need to wait for ideal conditions or for others to change first. You can begin today with the next choice you make, the next boundary you set, the next time you choose authenticity over approval. This is your invitation to step into the fullness of who you are, to reclaim the power you've been giving away, and to discover what's possible when you stop seeking permission to exist and start living from the truth of your own worth. The journey continues, and every step toward authentic self-respect is a step toward the life you're actually meant to live.